It's going great so far. I guess we've had about 6 shows and got another 4 or 5 to go, so about halfway through, and been wonderful so far. We haven't been down south of the border for any extended time in like 3 or more years, just, thanks to the pandemic and how that all timed out. So it feels good to get back and see some people and play for them and, all the rest.
And we're hanging out with John-Angus MacDonald from the Trews. We're talking about the U.S. tour that you're on right now. Tonight you're going to be playing in Pittsburgh?
Yeah, we're in Pittsburgh tonight and then in Detroit on Friday.
And I saw this morning there's only a few tickets left for the Detroit show. Is it sold out yet?
It might be. I haven't gotten a ticket count yet today, but yesterday it was very close to being sold out. So I think we're anticipating a sellout by the time we get there on Friday, which is great.
Do you have any Canadian dates coming up?
We do have the odd thing. Like we're going out to PEI for the Canada Winter Games in late February. And then there's another show in March out in BC. It's sort of sporadic until the summer when things will start to pick up a little more with the festivals and whatnot.
Okay. So your latest album, The Wanderer, recorded during the pandemic. It was kind of recorded all over the place. You started it in Nashville with Rich Robinson. Mm-hmm. So you did 3 songs with him?
Yeah. Rich is an old friend of ours. We've known him for 15 or 20 years, and just a guy who's looked up to, admired. He's an influence. His band, The Black Rose, is a band I've always really wanted to work with them, and the stars finally sort of aligned in late 2019. We went down to a studio in Nashville and did 3 songs, which was like December of 2019. We came back to Canada, and everybody was super jazzed about the direction and the songs, and we had planned to go back in March of 2020, and then everybody knows what went up, what happened next, and we just were never able to sort of see that thing through. So it took until about July or August of 2020 before we could figure out even how to get back into a studio, because there was so many restrictions and people couldn't all be in the same room at the same time and all that stuff. So it took us a while, but we put the pieces back together slowly. We worked with Derek Hoffman, who produced our last record, Civilianaires, on a bunch of tracks, and then we worked with another guy named Ratz, great Canadian producer, on another bunch of tracks. And by early 2021, we had the record in the can, and then it came out late that year in November.
Right. And thanks for getting us through the pandemic. You guys did a lot of things and really keep up on your social media. I love how you are doing the memories on social media. You go to New York and then you talk about something that happened maybe 10 years ago there. Good stories for your fans. Like usually artists have, someone on their team working their social media, but you guys get right on there. And I know your brother Colin, he was getting up in his pajamas and singing to us while we were stuck at home. And it was really...
Yeah, I think that was like mutual therapy, to be honest. The pandemic was such a stressful time, and there was so little to do, especially for us in the arts and performing world. There was just nothing to do, and it was very stressful, and honestly, I don't want to cry the blues here, because many people had many more stressful jobs during the pandemic, like first responders and nurses and doctors and everything else. But in our own way, it was very, it's just anxiety inducing to not know when the work is coming back and when the shows are coming back. And, so I think for Colin, it was almost like therapy to get on the couch and play for the people through the phone every Friday. And we had this great legion of dedicated people that would tune in every week. And I think it helped people on both sides of the camera. And also, the pandemic for us was actually a crash course in social media in general, because we had always kept it at a bit of an arm's length. Like you said, we had management, people like that would help us with posts and staying on top of it. But I think just having to deal with the pandemic and it being the only avenue and only way to reach your fans, we all had to sort of get better at it and get more used to using it as a communication tool. So
during the pandemic too, you wrote a song with your son, and you're actually the vocals on the song Enemy on the new album.
That's right, yeah. The writing of it actually predates the pandemic by a year or so, but it just took that long to get it recorded. But yeah, my son Elliot is a gifted little drummer, and he has been since about the age of 3 years old. And we jammed together, so out of those jams, a few riffs and melodies came out that we, ended up turning into songs down the road. So it's kind of a proud papa moment to say you've co-written a song with your son, you know.
And for it to make an album, like how old would he have been when you guys put together Enemy?
I think like 4 or 5, you know, something like that. It's really funny though. For him, he just grew up around music, you know, like he you know, it's never not been a part of his life. Like I've always been going off on tour or having people over to write and jam and record, or he would be coming and joining us on tour. So for him, it was just natural that, you know, I guess adults play music and this is just what life is like. And so he just kind of slid right into the role of kid that I jam with and you know, kind of swimming in the ideas and coming up with his own stuff. So it's a really funny thing.
And you guys are not slowing down. Like listening to this album, I can't wait to see you guys live and playing some of these songs because we're going to be jumping up and down, but we need to work on our cardio for this.
Yeah, it's a rock record. I mean, it must be all the pent up energy of being stuck inside that's sort of showing itself. I also think, you know, Civilianaires, which I'm also very proud of that record. That one came out in 2018, but it was very like studio constructed, you know, like a lot of the material came out of just sitting around the computer and coming up with the parts and overdubbing the parts and all that kind of stuff. And we wanted to get back to like a live feeling record. So everything on Wanderer was tracked, you know, live off the floor with the 5 of us playing together. And that was intentional. We just wanted to capture that sort of like live spirit, you know, and I guess that's hence the up-tempo-ness of most of the tracks. It
really showcases your guitar playing. This is a guitar record.
Yeah, it is. I mean, we've been a guitar band all along and just sort of branched out in different directions on this record or that record. But ultimately, you know, that's the music we started with as sort of the bedrock influence on the band. So that's something we always end up going back to. And as far as when we go live, it's always easier if you're playing to your strengths in the studio and on the material, because then you don't have to bring out a big bag of tricks on stage and run computers and programs and background stuff and all that kind of, you know, you can just sort of stick to the sort of fundamental elements of what makes your band, you know, a good band.
We had a chance to see you guys a couple months ago in Windsor opening up for the Black Crowes, and you're really good live. I can see why you'd want to catch that naturally and record it together as a group. I bet you didn't even need that many takes.
Oh, well, I appreciate the compliment. I think the trick is, it's because 2 things are happening in the studio. Is like you're finishing a song that you've written, that you've made up, you know, so that's always on your mind. Like, is the song done? Are the parts done? Should I change this part? Should I change this lyric? Should we change the key of this song? So it's still very much in the like creation mode, but then you're also trying to just perform it well, which is the other thing you're talking about, you know, about like just playing to the strengths of the band and turning into good performance. That's oftentimes why the best performances of some of these songs come like 6 months to a year after the record is out, because now you've committed to the songs, you've committed to the arrangement, it's behind you now, and you can just sort of focus on just performing it. And so, you know, that's why I always think like we're probably playing these songs better now than ever, because we've had a year to really get to know them and play them for people. So do you ever listen back to the album and think, like, is there changes that you've made now that you're playing some of these songs live that you wish you would have put on the album? It happens all the time. You know, it's almost like the album is just a snapshot on the song's journey. You know, the songs, they do in their own way keep evolving, especially the grooves get more natural, our parts get slightly more refined. Like an album version is always going to be great, and it's always especially going to be important to fans because they get attached to it because it's the way they get used to hearing it. But for performers, I think we kind of feel like the songs are at their best a year into playing them live. Right. Well, I was watching on your social media, you put a video, Ishmael and Maggie, on in a New York show, and it seems so intimate, and it seems like you guys just started jamming and the crowd came in and was singing backup for you. It was such a great video. We have taken to like entering the crowd for that song and making it a sing-along, which is sort of the intended purpose of that song was to make this sort of like East Coast kitchen party sing-along song. And so we've just taken to like going into the crowd and doing just that with it. And some nights it's harder than others. In New York, we were playing a fairly mid-sized venue and people were able to like really quiet down and listen and then cheer when it was appropriate. A couple days later in Buffalo, we were playing for about 1,200 people in a much bigger place. And it was very difficult to cut across that volume. The audience was very excited, but it was still a great moment. I think just the idea of getting in with the people and singing it all together is the sort of whole purpose of that song.
Well, it's a great thing you guys do as a band, bringing music to us, whether we're stuck at home and now that we can get out, we can go see you live. So this tour that's going on, you've got, I think, 5 more dates, and then you'll be playing some stuff in and around the area all summer long. So we look forward to seeing you, and thank you so much for taking the time with me. John-Angus MacDonald of the Trews. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for having me, and hope to see you at a show.